Today is the 20th of April, 2012. We're at the New York State Military Museum in Saratoga Springs, New York. My name is Wayne Clark. Sir, for the record, would you please state your full name and date and place of birth, please?
Ron Tremper, January 11th, 1966, New York City, New York.
Did you attend school in New York City?
No, I did not.
Whereabouts did you go to school?
I grew up on the Jersey Shore in Lakewood, New Jersey, and that's where I went through elementary and high school.
And what year did you graduate from high school?
1983.
And once you graduated, did you go on to college or did you go into the service?
I did. I went into college, went to Boston University where I went through ROTC.
Mm-hmm. And you graduated
Yes.
with a degree in?
Bachelor's of Science in Aerospace Engineering.
Okay. And you were commissioned as a second lieutenant?
Second lieutenant in the Air Force.
All right. What happened next?
Had the proverbial 7 or 8 months off before I went in, and then I went to flight school. I went in as a navigator, so I went to flight school in Sacramento, California, Mather Air Force Base.
Navigator on what type of aircraft?
Eventually I ended up in the RF-4C Reconnaissance Phantom.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So, yeah, it was definitely a unique experience.
Uh-huh. Did you find the course pretty tough?
Parts of it, it was a lot of math and science, and since my degree was in engineering, wasn't all that difficult. I guess the toughest part for me was trying to balance it all together.
Mm-hmm.
You were out of college, you still wanted to have that freedom, but at the same time, it was probably more studying and more, time in the books than I actually even had to do in college.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Now, why did you pick navigation over becoming a pilot?
My eyes were in 2020, and some years you get lucky and they have so few people applying for pilot spots that you can get by with it, but in my case it wasn't. So I figured the only way I got a chance to fly was to go backseat, and in a fighter jet I don't think it really mattered.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You graduated from that course, and did you have to go on to more schooling, or did you go to a unit?
Once graduating, I had to go to basic survival school up in Spokane.
Mm-hmm. Now, what type of survival training was it? Was it winter, summer, tropics?
I probably had the best time to go. It was early fall, so weather was perfect. It was like almost like going on a camping trip with the Scouts. It was. But I did a week. I actually was up there for 2 weeks in Spokane, and then we went down to Homestead Air Force Base where we did a week of water survival before heading off to Alamogordo. I forgot the name of the base in Alamogordo, where we did lead-in fighter training, where we spent a few months with the T-38s, the advanced trainer fighters, prepare going into RTU.
Now, what is RTU?
It pretty much basically it was preparing you for your jet. So then I went from there was to Bergstrom Air Force Base in Austin, and then we did about 7 months of learning actually to fly the F-4s, the reconnaissance. So you pretty much basically start with the just in simulators for a couple of days, and then they send you off onto the plane, and then we spent about 7 months learning the systems, learning the aircraft. Before then getting your assignment. And for me, my assignment actually, because of the way the bases were closing, I ended up staying at Mather, or Bergstrom for it was about 4 years, 4.5 years.
Now, you actually got some stick time, and in case something happened to the pilot, you were able to fly the aircraft and land it?
Well,
although you're technically not a pilot?
Yeah, technically what it was is they, most of the pilots wanted to get as much stick time as possible, because for them, they were the ones up front, bird strike, they're the ones that incapacitated. They were really hoping that you guys, the backseat would be able to take it. So I did get a lot of stick time. Definitely some things that were not allowed, takeoff landings, air-to-air refuelings. And the policy was that if you ever took a bird strike and the pilot couldn't land, you're supposed to eject both out. But it's a tough thing to do, to know that you're going to, eject somebody that may or may not have a torn chute. So usually most were in agreement that if the backseat, I felt like they can land it, they were going to try. Luckily, I never had to take that, give that a chance, but it did get a lot of stick time over the time.
Okay, so you spent 4 years stateside?
Yep. And then the F4, was being decommissioned. The Air Force was getting rid of it, going to the 15s, 16s, and then now the new aircraft. So what they ended up doing is I had the opportunity to become an ALO Air Liaison Officer working with the Army. So I spent, was going to be 2 years over in Germany, 5th Corps headquarters, working in the main Air Force unit assigned to 5th Corps headquarters, working on plans and programs for the Air Force assigned to Army units in Europe.
What part of Germany was that?
Stationwide in Frankfurt.
Okay.
So, wasn't like some of the other guys that were in smaller units spread out throughout Germany. I was a big city, office building type work.
Okay. So you stayed in Germany for about 2 years?
Supposed to, but then we had the reduction in force, and unfortunately I was let go at the time, so I got to spend almost a full year in Germany.
Now, what rank were you when you got out?
I was captain when I got out.
Anything going on in Germany that, well, this was basically like Cold War, right?
No.
Well, the Cold War was over, but
over. Yeah, the wall was down, or at least the gate was down. A lot of the wall was still there. But I guess for me it was really neat is because I was able to be on the early side of people going over to Eastern Europe and getting to see what that was like.
Did you get to go over there?
I spent some time in Berlin. I spent some time in at the time Czechoslovakia. On leave, and it gave me a chance to see. And Europe was different to begin with, but then when you go to Eastern Europe and saw how things were back then, it was. It's amazing that how different the two sides of the continent were because of what was going on.
Were you married at the time?
No, I was single. And it afforded me the opportunity to do a lot of traveling throughout Europe, see a lot of things.
Just anything that really stands out in your mind, any of your experiences, either stateside or over in Europe?
They were just, one that really hits me is that we were doing I was flying with one of the older colonels. He was getting ready to retire, and we were doing just a standard mission. The reconnaissance, because it didn't have any equipment, the motto was alone, unarmed, and unafraid. We had no weapons, we had no nothing. We went in, took the photos, and left. So we did a lot of low-level flying, 100 feet, 500 feet, 300 feet down, hopefully so below the weapons. But to take good pictures, you had to get to altitude. So we would do pop-up missions where you'd come up, roll, take a picture, and then back down. And I was flying with one of the colonels, and he also grew up in Jersey, so we liked to fly together when we could. And he was getting ready to retire, and we're up like this, and we go like this, turn, take the picture, and all of a sudden the engines go out. And we're at about 1,500 feet, and probably only about another 500 feet to go before we're supposed to bail out. And again, he's like, "Well, if you want to bail out, bail out." Rotating says, "But I'll recover the engines." And I'm like, "Great," because I'm still a young lieutenant, and I'm like, do I bail out? And if he gets the engine started, then it'll look great, or but he said he can do it, and I trusted him, and he got the engine started about 400 feet, and it was he's like, "Yeah, don't worry about it." Once the first one was started, then it was fine, but he was like, "Okay." And I realized at that time, and being an engineer, I knew the F4 was one of those, like Bumblebee, put enough power on it and anything could fly. And I realized that I got a chance to be part of something amazing, because the F4 was just a warhorse for so many years. While it was being phased out, it still was able to really play the game. Flew some aircraft that were built before I was born. Getting a chance to go to Davis Monthan when we used to take the jets back there, and just seeing all of them lined up, and it's just the history that was involved with that.
How many flying hours did you log?
About 650 total hours when I was in. when you think about it, that the missions were only an hour and 15 to an hour and 45 for the most of them. It was a lot of different flights. They also want us to do what we call cross countries, where you would fly, you leave like on a Friday morning and come back on a Monday evening, and you spend the whole weekend flying around different parts of the country, more so just to learn how to fly into different bases. So you got a chance to see different places and do different things. And being single, I used to volunteer. Hey, somebody wants to go, I'll go. It gave me a chance to see a lot of different places, a lot of different parts of the country. My kids are so amazed that I've been to so many different states. It's like, well, yeah, they pay me to go visit and travel and see this stuff. So,
What was the top speed of the aircraft?
the F4 without, if it was flown clean, which is no external tanks, everything wiped away, probably about, at an altitude was about 1.6, 1.7 Mach. And I know I've gotten, when we were there, especially when we used to do the exercise in Las Vegas, out in Nellis Air Force Base, we'd regularly get up to 1.1, 1.2. So, and unfortunately, as all excited as I was that we'd break the sound barrier, there's nothing to it from the airplane. You don't notice it, you don't see it. So, unlike the right stuff with Chuck Yeager breaking it, no excitement.
Did you have any other duties or responsibilities outside of being an air crewman?
My job when I was flying, my additional duty was a ground safety officer. So I was responsible for making sure everybody took their training. I worked with the guys that ran the simulators to set up the training, create profiles. So I did a lot of the ground training. I was also, one of my other side duties was safety. I was assistant safety officer, so I followed up with a lot of the safety stuff. But ground training was most of what I did. And then while in Germany, I was my job was responsible for plans and programs. So managing the exercise, such as Reforger, I was responsible for putting together those plans and building plans for contingencies if we ever had to go into wars with any other countries. Worked on developing those.
Any accidents or incidents while you were in?
There were, but none while I was doing the safety. We had a pilot that came in the class before I did. He was flying with a Marine backseater, and he put the plane into a spin. Wasn't able to recover, and unfortunately, in that case, they waited too late to eject. The backseater was able to get out, but Jim, he got out just before a plane crash, and he just didn't make it. So that was, when you sit there and you fly and you train for it, it's and then knowing somebody that did the exact same thing you did and didn't make it, it makes you think. Because we're 24, 25 at the time, thinking we're invincible, and maybe one reason why he waited as long as he did. So.
So when did you get out?
Got out in, I was going to get this right, it was December of '92. And that was when right after the reduction in force.
Did you have the option of joining a reserve unit or an air guard unit?
I may have, unfortunately, because the F4s were being phased out, there weren't as many units as there used to be, and most of the locations weren't in places that I necessarily wanted to go. I was really hoping to be able to go to the F4 unit in McGuire in New Jersey. It was close to where I grew up, but they had just transitioned to the F-16 and single-seater, so they had enough of their own backseaters that they wanted to send to flight school to get trained, so they weren't taking any additional ones. Unfortunately, it was one of those times where they were doing all the unit cutbacks, the plane cutbacks, and just didn't have the ability to to get on with anybody else unless I wanted to go to one of the larger aircraft. And just going from a fighter to a heavy just didn't seem right.
So you got out. You were in civilian life. What did you do then?
Got out, had no idea what I wanted to do. My background was in college, was engineering. I was just finishing up my master's with Embry-Riddle that I was getting through the Air Force on aviation science, pretty much to run an airport. But again, there were no jobs. Sounds very familiar with what's going on now. I've always loved to cook, so I actually got a job, moved back down to Texas, and got a job in a little Italian restaurant just because I needed to pay the bills. And the chef convinced me to go to culinary school, which, again, never would have thought of doing. And through there, became a chef, and ended up with the company that I'm in now. Not as a chef, actually as a trainer. So back to my additional duty when I was in the Air Force, I was in charge of ground training. Years later, that's what I'm doing for a career. I would have never imagined that's what it would have been. But
That's an amazing story. Now, where did you go for your chef training?
I went to the CIA in Poughkeepsie Culinary Institute.
Okay, yeah, I have a nephew that went there.
So I figured if I was going to go to school, I might as well go to the best. And,
Mm-hmm.
what was interesting is that when I applied, the VA, they wanted to know, because I was getting some VA benefits, because one of the deals with the reduction in force, and they says, well, can't you use any of your Air Force experience to pay for, to cover some of the classes in school? And I'm like, I flew an airplane, and I'm going to be becoming a chef. Those two are really, so, and it took me actually a few months of trying to convince them that there was nothing I can use to transfer over.
Mm-hmm. So you graduated from the Culinary Institute, and you went to work for...
The company I went to work for was actually called Flick, and I got hired by them, but shortly after I got hired, I was still in school at the time, they got purchased by Compass Group, which is who I work for now, and I went in as a unit manager, and after about 2 years, I moved over to their HR department in charge of training and safety. Again, the two things I worked on while in the Air Force, and now I work for the parent company, Compass, as a development of leadership training for them.
And where are they located?
Their corporate office in the U.S. is in Charlotte, but their global headquarters is out just outside of London.
Okay, but you're working in this area? Or?
Yeah, I work out of a home office when I'm around, so it gives me opportunity while I travel a lot. But when I'm home, so it balances out. So.
And when did you have time to get married?
I was actually, years ago, I was still living outside of New York City, working in Manhattan. That's where I met my wife, and she worked in the area, so we lived down there for about 8 years before moving up here. Kids came, and it's much nicer to be up here with the space and the land and the room for it. So.
Okay. Anything else? I'm sure there's other things we've missed. Anything that sticks out in your mind that you might want to mention or talk about? Or?
One of the things is that when I went to Germany, I got there and I never knew really what to expect. I mean, I'd gone to Europe before. We went to pick up a few jets that when they closed down Zweibrücken. So I'd been over there, but to live in a foreign country was something interesting. I got there and there's this guy there telling me, he goes, yeah, I don't get off base much. I'm like, oh, that busy? He goes, no, there's not much to do. And I'm like, okay. And then you get there and you find all these trips that you're able to take that, they run these vacation packages that you can take, and just the, you always hear the horror stories about, the Europeans and the ugly Americans. I found just quite the opposite. It's the people were just amazingly friendly. At one point I was driving along the border with France and saw signs from the Maginot Line. And again, being in the military, I had to see that. And a guy comes running, I get out of my car on some guy's farm, and I'm not thinking anything of it. And I start walking to the bunker, and the guy comes running after me with a shotgun, and he's yelling in French, and I, of course, understood no French, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to die here. And all of a sudden, his son comes up and starts yelling English. It's okay, it's okay. He just didn't want me to go in there by myself because of the rats and the rubble. And he brings out these 2 helmets with the lights on them, and he tours me around down there, and using his son as a translator, finds out my background. And we come up, and there's a blanket with meats and cheeses and wines laid out. And I was like, okay, so much for them not liking us. It was, while I didn't spend as much time over there as I was hoping for, I just, the whole military experience to me was just amazing. The opportunities, the parts of this country I saw, the parts of Europe that I saw, that would I've loved to have stayed in longer. My goal was to make a career out of it. I would have loved to have flown for 20 years, but never hit that point. But it was just so, just so amazing getting the opportunities to do that. you know, I still speak to some of the guys that I knew. A friend of mine that I graduated college with just retired after 25 years in as a full colonel. I've got another friend of mine, he's lieutenant colonel, he's a squadron commander down in a guard base, flying F-15s now. He was the first pilot I ever flew with. You know, we still joke about it that, you know, we had like 6 hours each total on the F-4, and they give us the plane, says, all right guys, go have fun for a while. And it's like, okay, you know, you're going to let us fly. It's like giving a kid with a learner's permit, he's been behind the wheel for 2 hours,
Yeah.
saying, all right, car's yours, go have fun, don't dent it. You know, it's just, you know, it's neat seeing these guys that have been able to get that full career in, but my wife keeps reminding me, we wouldn't have been together if we were still in, so. But it is, it's you know, I've still got you know, some of the stuff in the Air Force, and a few years ago I had the opportunity to, with my job, to, the Air Force has an award called the Hennessy Award, given to the top food service operations, and they give that out annually, and I belong to an organization that provides one of the judges for that. So about 4 years ago I had the opportunity to be one of the judges, so I got a chance to go back, and I went to 4 different bases in the U.S. I got a chance to go over to Turkey and to Japan to visit the Air Force bases and you know, see how things have changed, and it really has changed a lot since then. But you know, it's neat just to be able to see what's going on and to be part of it still.
Did you join any veterans organizations like the Legion? Or?
No, I keep saying I'm going to, and it just, you know, for me, I think it's time. I just never, you know, get ready to do it, and then all of a sudden, a soccer coach or t-ball coach or something pops up. So.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your interview.
You're welcome.